So I want to look at a few different ways of doing invoicing now. So we're in a demo company here, and there's a number of different ways we can invoice work out. So the first one is job by job. So if we go into a particular job, if I go and find one of the most recent ones here, then there's a financial tab on the right hand side. In the financial tab you can see if there's any quotes, estimates, invoices, anything like that against a job already. So this one here doesn't have a quote or an invoice, so I'll just quickly go in just for the sake of it, and I'll just put some time to a task just so we've got something to invoice out. So if I now go back to financial, you'll see that this time now wants to bill out, so we just put 10 hours to the concept stage, which is going to bill out at $1,000. So we can either do a progress invoice or a full invoice. I would advise you to use progress invoice all the time. The reason being, if you do a full invoice, it's effectively a full and final invoice. So the WIP gets written off, and depending on your settings in the system, the job may get closed down. So a progress invoice is generally better because you can still progress invoice the full amount, but you can do a more detailed invoice, and you can leave it open as well. So if I go progress invoice, then there's a couple of different options here. So I can either do an actual time and costs. So what that will do in this case is that will invoice the 10 hours that we've actually used on the job so far. Quoted or estimated time we can do as well. So if we had a quote in here, we could just invoice out the quote or any part of it. We've got a progress amount. So here we can put in, for example, we're just going to do $250. And if you had a quote in the system, you would also have a percentage amount. So you can say we're going to invoice 50% of the quote or 20% of the quote, most commonly used for things like deposits. So I'll just do actual time here. I can forward or backdate the invoice if I need to. Click next. That will then take you to a screen to just confirm all the invoice detail. So you can see all this information here, and it's just confirming tasks, costs, and so on. I can save that invoice as a draft, or I can approve it. If you save it as a draft, it just saves back into WorkflowMax. If you approve it and you're connected to Xero, then it will send it across to Xero as well. So if I go approve and print, then here I've got a few different options for invoice templates. If you need help with invoice templates, that is something that we can do when we do invoice setup for clients. But we've got a few in here, so I'll just do a full breakdown. Print this off, so it just prints to screen. So here I've got my demo company information, client, and I've got the full breakdown. And from here I can just email it straight through to the client. So the other way of doing invoicing is we can do it from business on the new interface, from business and then invoices. We can go here and go new progress invoice or new final invoice. So here if I raise a progress invoice, your advantage here is you can pick a particular client. So we'll pick Bob here for example. It's a job-based invoice. Miscellaneous invoice is more if you're just raising an invoice for a charge or something not related to a job. And here we can go down, so we could say we're going to invoice all of these jobs here. Click next. And what that will then do, in this case there's not a lot of information here, but it will then put them here section by section, so you get one invoice with 4 jobs on it. So the first example I gave was just invoicing by job. The second example is more for invoicing by clients or multi-job invoices. The last example I give will be under work in progress here. So we can also invoice work in progress. This is particularly useful for people that do like monthly billing and things like that. So if we go into the list view, we can see here the time that's been put on the job, the costs, any deposits, and therefore the work in progress. So in this example here, this job here had a deposit of $3,500. We've only used $1,200, so we're still negative WIP. But these ones here where we have a work in progress balance, I can run down them all and then press invoice at the top. There's a few options here for whether you want a progress invoice, whether you want to invoice the WIP or the quote. In most cases it'll be the WIP. And then whether you want to group it by client or by job. So in this case here, you can see in the background there's 2 jobs for Asias Designs. If I did it by job, these would be on 2 separate invoices. If I do it by client, they'll be grouped into one because they have the same client. Then if I hit create, WorkflowMax will go away and will create 4 invoices for those 4 separate jobs. And I can go through, view all 4 of them, and then approve them and send them through. So 3 different ways of doing invoicing there, both from a job, both on the fly for multi-job, and also from work in progress.